The title of our service today is The Shape You're In. We are going to look at how our characters are to take the shape of Christ and how certain individuals from the scriptures help shape us. Our first lesson is one you likely study every year or often. I like it because each study of it wraps me in a larger blanket of love and understanding of Christ and his love. Question: if your loved one passed away in death, and in God's wisdom they came back to life within a week, what would you be willing to give up or give back for that miracle? What would your response be? Would you give up a month's wages? A year's wages? That's a small price to pay. What would others say if you did that? Don't pay a year's wages. That's too much. That's what Judas and other disciples said to Mary of Bethany when Mary anointed Jesus with the perfume, the oil, the spikenard of fragrance and great value. Mary's decision revealed her heart gratitude for what Jesus did for her brother Lazarus. Just like the widow's mite, did Mary and the family have any more to give Jesus? Probably not much more. This was likely not Mary's perfume. This was likely a family treasure, perhaps a family heirloom. Did you notice that Mary and Martha did not use this heirloom on their brother Lazarus when he died? Mary was going to give away the family heirloom to Jesus. Lazarus and Martha never said a word when Mary anointed Jesus. I believe they may have agreed to do this prior. I know you would give away the family treasure in the similar situation, but some wouldn't, because Judas said, "You're wasting money. Sell this gift of oil to feed the poor." And this from the man pilfering the money box. Jesus' reply to Judas was memorable. John chapter 12, verse 7. "Leave her alone in order that she may keep it for the day of my burial." Mark chapter 14, verses 6 to 8. "Mary has done a good deed for me, for you always have the poor with you, and whenever you want, you can do good unto them. But you do not always have me." My brethren, we can always find good causes in the world, but our brethren and the opportunities to serve them will not always be here or be available to you to serve and demonstrate to God your love for them. Just like an old advertising campaign, we all remember, act now before this offer expires. And again, verse 8, "She has done what she could. She has anointed my body beforehand for the burial. Truly I say to you, wherever the gospel is preached in the entire world, what this woman has done will also be told in memory of her." The shaping of Mary of Bethany from the outside looking in would have to be, "She hath done what she could." It was one of the few things within her power to do. Doesn't it remind us of what God said to Moses at the burning bush? "What is that in thine hand?" That's exactly what Mary did. She used what she had. It begs us to look inside ourselves and see if there is anything the Lord has put before us that we can do for him or for his little flock. And it may not cost money, but it may take effort. We want to be remembered for doing whatever we could. Mark chapter 14, verse 8 again says of Mary, "Remember this name forever." And we will. And it's why we're talking about Mary of Bethany today. Doesn't her example stir us to do something today, anything today that shapes us, that lets us climb to a higher level of love in action? Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. The oil, the perfume, the spikenard. We have love, respect, gratitude, reverence, a willingness to learn from our choices. Ephesians chapter 5, 1 and 2, how well we know it. Therefore, be imitators of God as beloved children and walk in love, just as Christ also loved you and gave himself up for us, an offering and a sacrifice to God as a fragrant aroma. Walk in love, our only option for the new man. The words that come out of our mouths, are they a sweet-smelling savor to all? Do we give those around us our very best goodness? Is it hard to do? How do you want to be remembered? Our lessons. What does taking Mary's shape do for you, for the body, for God? How did this lesson shape Mary? It developed and revealed in her a zeal, a respect, a gratitude, and a reverence for Jesus and his Father, God. Mary heard Jesus ask his Father's help in raising her brother. She was so moved by what Jesus did for her and Martha, and it was Mary's time to give back. Mary gave the most valuable thing she had. Imagine the kindred spirit, the bond of family that Mary, Martha, and Lazarus felt together after this act of gratitude by Mary. We give God the most valuable thing we have. We give our hearts, which includes our consecrated goods. After all, everything we have is a gift from God. What we do with it is our gift to him. God has shown us that he will resurrect mankind, our loved ones. We owe him our everything. We give our all with this foreknowledge, and brethren, we all show it, don't we? May our Father richly bless each of you for the way you respect and reverence him. What does this shaping do for us, for the body? Mary demonstrated that her gift, her payment for resurrecting Lazarus, was all they had, the family heirloom. Our payment for eternal life is our life, our hearts, our all. Is that a fair payment? Our all is rather small in the grand scheme, isn't it? So why is it enough for the Lord? One word: grace. Our energy, our zeal propels and excites others. Laughter is infectious, and so is zeal. If our actions are revealed, we share a sweet fragrance between each other. Our words are in harmony, and we raise each other up, not put each other down. While some still think dividing the body is all right, this lesson tells us otherwise. We are shaped. We take the shape in the mold of Mary, who is shaped by the actions of Jesus Christ. We take his shape. This is the shape you're in. Our second shape. I've asked this before, but if you knew that you would be dead within hours, what would you do? What would your priorities be? What would you do for your family and your brethren? My absolute favorite example from Jesus is when he washed the feet of the disciples hours before his death. His behavior shapes me. It is in your face with the character shape of service and humility. Jesus even washed the feet of someone he knew was about to betray him. That shapes me. I will argue that this is one of the most powerful examples in the life of Christ and in the Bible from so many perspectives. Instead of emphasizing doctrine, Jesus emphasized humility. He read their hearts and heard them arguing about who was greatest among them. That doesn't sound like unity and oneness to me. Unity means being as one. No one bothered to wash Jesus' feet, nor their fellow disciples' feet. Mary could anoint Jesus with spikenard. She and her family gave their all, and this demonstrates such beauty. In the upper room, The disciples didn't take care of the Savior of the world. So Jesus teaches them. Jesus shapes them. He shows them what shape to take. He doesn't say, "Woe is me. Don't you disciples know I'm going to die shortly?" Jesus demonstrates the shape for us to conform to. Jesus helps them. Again, one more time. The Master, the perfect man who performed miracles and raised men from the dead, is washing my feet? In this lesson, Jesus washed your feet also. This is not only for the disciples. Our lessons. What does taking this shape from Jesus do for you? Well, where do you rank in relation to your brethren? You and I should place ourselves lower in rank than all of our brethren in service and importance. And they place themselves lower than you. It should be a constant battle between us to demonstrate to each other our humility and how they are more important to us than ourselves. Jesus demonstrated that humility and service to one another is the most important thing. Jesus demonstrated that this must be at the forefront of your character. I, Jesus, am shaping you all hours before I die. So how important is it? Let it be the shape you're in. What does taking this humble shape do for the body? It prepares you for your service to the bridegroom. It shapes you to fit into the one body. It shapes your new man to take instruction, to be willing to be told what to do, shaped and ready to serve, to do any task. Imagine someone in the bride class saying, "I don't want to do that task for the Messiah. I'm more important than that." Do you think this is ridiculous to say in the presence of God? It's just as ridiculous to think that any single duty in the Bible student world is beneath me, beneath us. Jesus said, "Show me, show my Father that you know this lesson, and let it shape you. Let it mold you. It needs to be the shape you're in." Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. You know it well. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interests of the others. Your good behavior validates God's plan, that God himself is working in you. You are declaring the call of the church for yourself. 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 5 and 6 says, all of you clothe yourselves with humility toward one another, because God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Our third shape. I know that some of you may deal with family betrayal or toxic relationships. We expect a certain preferential treatment of love from our family. Why does it hurt so much when familial relationships go bad? When we think of forgiveness in families, what shape did God create for us to emulate? Joseph forgiving his brothers is a good place to start. Here's the point. Just as Joseph did, we are to accept the Lord's will no matter what it is. And forgiveness must be given even years after a wrong or injury. During the 7 years of famine, Joseph's family in Canaan needed food. The brothers made the trip to Egypt at the request of their father. They didn't recognize their younger brother Joseph, whom they sold into slavery 2 decades earlier. Joseph was second in command of the most powerful nation in the world. Joseph recognized his brothers at first glance, and he cried in private several times. For their second journey to Egypt, they brought their youngest brother Benjamin with them because Joseph required them to do this. It was at that reunion Joseph revealed himself and he forgave them. The brothers were afraid to approach Joseph, but Joseph said, "Come near to me, please." Such important words. Our words can make a wound worse. Our words can heal wounds. Our words can calm fears. Listen to this moving account in Genesis 45, verses 1 through 8. Quote, "Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, 'Have everyone leave my presence.' So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, 'I am Joseph. Is my father still living?' But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, 'Come close to me.' When they had done so, he said, 'I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now there has been a famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there will be no plowing and reaping. But God has sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So then, it was not you who sent me here, but God." End of quote. Can you imagine being your dad's favorite son, but all your family hates you? Your family plots to murder you, but instead they sell you into slavery and tell your father you're dead. Well, isn't that nice? If you were Joseph, what would your attitude be towards God? While in slavery, would you do your best with a positive attitude? Joseph did. He rises up through the ranks and gains power in the house of the captain of the guard, a very prestigious man. Joseph was made overseer of that house. It's a lot of power. You each know how power can corrupt and how our leaders today think they are infallible, but not with Joseph. Genesis chapter 39, verses 2 through 6. Quote, "And the Lord was with Joseph, so he became a successful man. And he was in the house of his master, Potiphar the Egyptian. Now Potiphar saw that the Lord was with Joseph, and that the Lord made all that he did prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his sight and became his personal servant. And Potiphar made him overseer over his house and put him in charge of all that he owned. It came about that from the time he made him overseer in his house and over all that he owned, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house on account of Joseph. So the Lord's blessing was upon all that he owned in the house and in the field. So he left Joseph in charge of everything that he owned." Joseph did his job in Potiphar's house with excellence, honesty, and integrity. So then what happens? God permits Joseph to get tested with the temptation of lust. He resists the temptation and then is thrown into prison for it. What would your attitude be then? Verses 20 to 23 says, "But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there." God had plans for Joseph during all the years of slavery. What kind of person would Joseph be after his brothers planned his death, but then sold him into slavery? Would he take revenge? After all, he had the power of the throne of Egypt. And yet, after all those experiences of betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment, Joseph forgave his brothers. There's a point here that I appreciate, in that this could be a picture of the undeserved grace that Jesus brought. Joseph didn't hold a grudge. He calmed his brothers and said, "Do not be distressed. We will be okay." Joseph forgave. That would be a great shape for us to be in today, and for any who may struggle with forgiveness, with someone who displays an unrepentant spirit, and certainly with family members who try us. Joseph demonstrated an example of reconciliation and family reunion. The qualities that Joseph showed us are those of a peacemaker, a forgiver, a grace giver, an obedient follower of God, a respecter of God, and a lover of brothers and family. Why is it so important to recognize how God shaped Joseph? To my knowledge, it is the only Old Testament record where one man forgave another without request. We have Old Testament scriptures where the Lord forgives, or where there is forgiveness after an offering, but this is man forgiving man. Talk about fiery trials and testings. Joseph lived them all, and he accepted God's will no matter what happened to him. And this is how he was remembered by his family, how he was remembered by Potiphar, by the prison warden, by Pharaoh, and by all of Egypt. And this is the shape for us to emulate. This is why many brethren see Joseph's example as a type of Christ. Joseph left us a beautiful example of faith, a shape for us to copy and to follow. How do you want to be remembered? And now we'll briefly look at one final example. This is about respect for God and obedience. Noah had never seen proof of what God said he was going to bring upon the earth. God simply told Noah to build something, and Noah did it. He did it by faith. That's what we do. God said he would destroy everyone and everything, and Noah had to believe that God would make it rain, something that never happened before in man's history. Noah, just believe me. Have faith in things you have never seen. And then Noah had to believe that God would save him and his family if he did these things. So, with specific instructions and with his sons as helpers, Noah built an ark. We have no idea how long it took to build, but it was built to divine design. We have no scriptures to record exactly how long it took to build, nor how much ridicule he may have endured. We simply know it was a radical thing to build. He respected what God said. He obeyed. He did it by faith. And with that simple act, he preserved the human race. It's one of our favorite childhood stories, and we remember Noah for it. That was the shape Noah was in. That's the shape we want to be in. We've never seen our future heavenly home. We're simply told to build a new man, a new self, and we do it by faith, believing in the unseen. For eye has not seen, nor ear heard, neither has entered into the heart of men the things which God has in store for them that love him. Friends, in closing, that's the shape of some of our biblical heroes who inspire us. That's the shape we want to be conformed to also. Let the Lord shape you. After all, how do you want to be remembered?